Tonight's all-star panel. On the left, Columbia University professor Marc Lamont, who says the government should never shut down. On the right, we have Fox News contributor Monica Crowley, who says no budget, no problem. And Fox News medical contributor Dr. Keith Abloh, who says a government shutdown is A-OK with him. What do you mean, you guys? It's a shut down? It's okay? You mean, don't you want the IRS to stay open for business?
Look, essential services continue, and I'm a fan of the truth, the facts. So I'd rather come to a grinding halt because people can't agree to respect reality than to go on with fiction and have the toll be that we continue something that's unsustainable. That's all.
Look, let's remind ourselves why we're in this fix to begin with and why the Democrats and the president are now running around with their hair on fire again, because the Democrats did not do their job last year. When they held the White House in big majorities in both houses of Congress, it was their duty to advance a budget proposal for 2011. They refused to do it because they didn't want their vulnerable members going into November's elections having to vote either on cuts or increased spending. And that's why we're in this mess now.
I want to debate this in a minute. I'd like you guys to take that full screen again. Our little graphic that we put together. No, that's not really a billboard on I-95 Marc Lamont Hill, but it really does point something out. We have a lot going on in D.C., Mark, and he spent the morning in your city, Philadelphia, talking to
no better place to be.
A wind energy company, and he spent the evening at Al Sharpton's gala dinner.
You watch too much TV, man. Do you really think like the president can only operate from his desk in the Oval Office and that everything else is?
I certainly would rather have him there than on Marine One on his way down to see a Spanish wind energy
from a public relations standpoint, you're probably right. In fact, if I were his advisor, I'd say, you know what, you probably shouldn't be hanging out all over the country while fires are burning, right? But in terms of actually governing, in terms of actually managing these issues, that's the fundamental the question. How do you manage these issues? And you can do that whether you're in Philadelphia or whether you're in D.C. And the question right now is, how can we rein in big business? How can we keep an economy thriving? And if a government shuts down, no one benefits from that. And that's really the issue. I don't care.
No, but let's stay on this. Let's stay on this for a second. He launched the Libyan attack, our portion of it, from Rio de Janeiro. We have budget woes going on. We have terror. We have everything blasting fires.
This is the same ridiculous argument people made about George Bush. I thought it was a ridiculous thing.
Campaign today in Philadelphia, in New York City, hanging out with Al Sharpton.
That is again. You raised two really important points, right? One is that we have the policy of the permanent campaign. We saw it with Bush, we saw it with Clinton, and we see it with Obama now. They never really stopped campaigning, and that's a problem. We need someone to govern. I don't disagree with that. But let's not act as if this is the first time this happens. Presidents do this all the time.
But presidents don't have a theme that's this pure. The theme in the Obama travels is go to places that are seen as underdogs again and again. Not big business, not successful business, and we hear it from the congressman. Let's not subsidize the winners. Let's look to the people who are going bankrupt and try to prop up the failing industries.
Let's not over-subsidize
and let's go to Brazil and contract with them for oil, because maybe they could use some success. Why do it here at home? And let's do wind, because wind sucks. So let's go do the sucky thing, because it's an underdog.
Okay, let's bring this back to the budget, because that's the immediate and urgent crisis in front of us, right? There are 2 points about this. There is the perception, and then there's the reality. So I think you're right, and Mark, you agreed with Eric that on the perception there is an optic problem here for the president, where he seems to be disengaged from the budget battles. He's partying with Al Sharpton tonight and so on. But the reality dovetails very close to that. There are a lot of Democrats in the Senate in particular, but also in the House, who've complained that this White House has not been engaged. He does not have the Democrats back on the budget battles. He hasn't presented his own alternative. So he's out there sort of complaining about the Republican
I've made that argument since healthcare. We've been saying this since healthcare.
Marc Lamont Hill, you called it optics, tone deaf, whatever you called it. But the man was with his wife, his kids, probably the dog too, the mother-in-law in Rio de Janeiro. When he launched, he said, go ahead, go. It's go time. Unleash hell on Libya. I mean, come on,
Eric,
really?
Again, it looks bad. I'm not disagreeing with that. But the project would not have been more efficient had he been in D.C. It's a public relations problem. It's an optic problem.
He did this from a blue tent with 2 telephones. I mean, he may not have had all the information he needed to make that call.
Now you're going too far. There's no evidence that that's true. That's complete speculation.
I don't know.
There's no evidence.
Let me launching a war from a blue tent in Rio de Janeiro.
What should he have done? Should he have gone back to D.C.?
Let me find the common ground.
He should never have left, Mark. By the way, guys, I'm sorry. Doctor, you can weigh on this. When health care was an issue, he delayed his Australian trip to make sure the health care vote went through and passed.
The thematic significance that seems to unite you two fellows, by the way, as the psychiatrist on the panel, is this, that for some reason he's disengaged. Now, you say he's governing from
I don't think
Brazil.
he's disengaged. I think he appears disengaged.
Well, okay, appearance can reflect, wouldn't you say, like a psychological reality?
It could, but in this case it does not, is what I'm saying.
How do you know that, man?
And no more
why can't it just be he's disengaged?
No.
He is disengaged.
No.
He's ambivalent about using American power. He's not going to use it from the White House.
I don't believe that any U.S. president
sitting
is
in the White
disengaged.
House and launching an attack is anathema to him.
I do not believe
he doesn't want to use American power as an
Doc,
American.
hang on, Doc.
He wants to be in Brazil.
Huge
He
stretch.
wants to be in
That is
Brazil.
a huge
He wants to be in Brazil.
Guys, when are you going to have three people with a doctor, a PhD at the end of their name on one panel, only here tonight? Hold on, everyone, just for a second. Joining me now, Representative Steve King from Iowa, who called the budget battle a showdown on the shutdown, sir. You've said that Harry Reid and President Obama have planned for a face-off for a long time. Could you please explain that to us?
Well, I asked the question back last December when they had the majorities in the lame duck session, huge majorities in the House and in the Senate and the President. Democrats had the ability to pass a budget, a spending bill, and appropriations for the balance of this fiscal year all the way to the end of September. Instead, they agreed to a short-term continuing resolution that expired March 4th of this year. It didn't make sense until you look at what has happened since that period of time and listen to the words of Harry Reid and Senator Schumer and Howard Dean and the President. All of that adds up together to tell me they plan to shut this government down. They did so in December, and they're seeking to do so because they think that they win this argument with the American people and they'll be rewarded in the ballot box in November of 2012. It's a completely cynical operation going on. It's not about policy. It's not about funding. It's about politics and all politics.
Representative Paul Ryan today was on the various media circuit talking about discretionary spending, and I think he points out, I'm not sure the number he used, but I did a little homework here. Discretionary spending is up about 25% in the last two and a half years, three budgets. Where in the world, during a recession, should discretionary spending increase, and why has it?
Well, it shouldn't. It shouldn't increase anywhere in this. In fact, we need to look at the discretionary spending and reduce all of it to the strongest extent possible, down to the political will threshold, so to speak. And that threshold, for me, is different than it is for a number of the others. I think Paul Ryan's put out a bold budget here that lays out the parameters that bring our discussions where they need to go. And we need to talk about discretionary spending. We need to talk about entitlement spending. And I'm just of the opinion that we need to get to a point where we can offer a budget that balances in a period of time that people can live with. And I want one actually a little shorter than Paul Ryan's today. All
right, turning the page a little bit, turning a little different direction, sir. Steve King, I don't know, there's a nickname going around. It's called the Kingmaker, Steve King. Let's go to you. You're a very important state. You're Iowa State. You're the man there. Who do you like? Is there anyone in the GOP field that really that you could get behind?
Well, nobody is a kingmaker. It's the American people that will determine who their president will be. But I do want to weigh in on this to this extent. I'm encouraging all the candidates to engage in Iowa, in New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, and on down the line. Bring the full breadth of the agenda to the table, and let's sort this out. Let's have the Olympic trials, so to speak, and ideas and individuals will emerge. So even if I had a favorite candidate, and I don't, inside of me I don't have a secret that I'm holding back, but I'm encouraging this process. And if we ever lose this process, then it will be just the person with the deepest pockets that gets nominated.
Right. Because on the other side, you're going to have a billion-dollar campaign going forward. They'll clearly win that race. But sir, what are you looking for? What are you looking for on the GOP side? What's the one headline you want to hear for the candidate you get behind?
I don't know about one headline, but I would say the best description is this: a full-spectrum conservative, both a fiscal and social conservative, a constitutional conservative who believes it in their soul. If we have a president like that, then their foundation will be solid and the decisions that they make will be strong. And part of this test will help that emerge. And another thing that I will tell you plainly that I'm looking for, though, is a very strong presidential candidate who will use the leverage of the presidency to assure that we finally, once and for all, repeal Obamacare, pull it all completely out by the roots, and somebody that's strong enough that I believe they'll get it done.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. I want to talk to you again, sir, if we can. We led the bookie again, because I want to hear your thoughts on Mitt Romney and his issue with Obamacare, Romneycare. We'll do that another time. Thank you very much for joining us, Congressman Steve King.
Thanks, Eric.
Joining me now is Fox News political analyst, Mr. Juan Williams. Juan, I'm going to go back to the earlier discussion, if you don't mind. Every time there's a big crisis, tsunami, Libya, budget, your guy, he gets on Air Force One or Marine One and gets out of town. What's going on?
Well, I don't know that he's my guy, Eric, but I will say this. I'll defend this. I think, look, you don't stop living.
You're breaking news, Williams. Back up. Put Juan back on camera, you guys. Say that again. You don't know
I don't think he's my
your
guy, but I'll tell you what I think about this. I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, look, he said yesterday, and this is very interesting to me, he said, you know what, let the people on Capitol Hill propose a budget. It's their job. They're the legislators. I'm the executive. But you know what? He's been involved, and in fact, he invited them to come back today if they need to. But right now, I think they've got to do some, especially on the Republican side, some selling to those Tea Party freshmen.
He spends a very, very important day, like I said, in Philadelphia at a wind energy, a Spanish wind energy company, no less, because they're very union friendly. Let's be clear. They hire the United Steelworkers. They're very progressive union relationships are there. And then he spends the evening with Al Sharpton. I mean, this is his base.
Hey, Eric, you know what? We live in the modern age. There are telephones, there are computers. He's not out of touch, I assure you. But if there was a deal for him to sign on to, I'm sure that he would give the nod. And believe me, he's putting pressure right now on the Democrats, because the polls show that this thing could split both ways, that Republicans and Democrats would be blamed for any shutdown that would come midnight Friday.
Very quickly, guys, Monica, you want to weigh in on this before we get to break?
Well, look, I mean, there is a perception and a reality problem, and what Mark was saying before Juan weighed in was that the perception and the reality cross. You've got Democrats, you've got members of Obama's own party saying, hey, this guy does not have our back, he is not engaged, he is not doing the political blocking for us on the budget crisis.
What about it, Doc?
No, and I think that, you know, there is a psychological undercurrent that needs to be respected here. When a man is missing in action, it can be because he is ambivalent about his office, ambivalent about this country, and prefers to govern from elsewhere.
And I think I think if you were subjected to some scrutiny, you could find that. But I think what you'd more likely find is that he, quite frankly, just doesn't want to be blamed for this. We saw the same thing with health care. He let Pelosi and Reid take it so he wouldn't get blamed for it.
I think that's right.
I think that's more of what it is. I don't think it's ambivalent.
That's exactly right.
He's president. He owns it, man.
No, it's a bad strategy.
We're going to have to leave it right there. The uproar in Wisconsin is collective bargaining DOA, or will the unions gain the upper hand again? You're watching the Fox Business Network.